In a dystopian future, a government scientist, Spencer Olham, narrates explaining that Earth is in the year 2079 and is under attack by an alien race called the Centauri. The aliens have been sending genetically engineered replicants to Earth who are indistinguishable from humans but carry a bomb inside them. Spencer lives with his wife, Maya. While he is in the shower, Maya sees a news report about a recent attack by the Centauri. She calls Spencer to watch the news, which is covering last week's Centauri attack on the Tolstoy colony on asteroid X-83. The report also mentions that the Chancellor, after a briefing with top officials at Sector 8, is visiting their region for a secret meeting with government scientists. As Spencer is on his way to work, he sees a man looking through a telescope and comments his thoughts about them not getting through the dome, but the man told him that they will. Spencer meets up with his friend Nelson. Nelson starts asking about the meeting with the Chancellor that night. As they were walking, Spencer glanced at a soldier who was standing. They reach a room where a weapon they were buying is in and start complimenting it. As they were talking, a man interrupted and mentioned how good the weapon is. Spencer and Nelson, confused, asked if they knew each other. The man told them he was a special unit and introduced himself as Major Hathaway. He then offered his hands to Spencer, and Spencer shook his hands, but something came out of Major Hathaway's hand and stabbed Spencer. Nelson angrily shouted at Hathaway, but the other soldiers overpower him. Spencer wakes up connected to tubes, confused. Major Hathaway approaches and mocks him, revealing that 3 days ago a Centauri courier was intercepted with a plan to infiltrate Earth using humanoid robots. Hathaway explains that these robots are genetic cyborgs, indistinguishable from humans. He shows Spencer a hit list with Spencer's name on it, accusing him of being a cyborg sent to assassinate the Chancellor that night. Spencer insists he's human and suggests tests to prove it, but Hathaway dismisses him, comparing him to a dog mimicking human behavior. To reinforce his point, Hathaway shows a video of another cyborg being exposed during torture, revealing its true nature. Spencer looked up and saw Nelson and other scientists looking at him. He tries to convince Nelson that he is his friend and tries to make him remember their previous time as friends. Hathaway comes back and orders the others to start the procedure. As they approached him, Spencer started acting crazy. Despite this, they picked him up and took him to the table where the machine was implanted. As they were dragging him to the table, Spencer attacked them and ran away. Soldiers kept following, but Spencer hid and managed to lose them. As he was waiting for the elevator, the door opened and he faced soldiers and Nelson along with them. Without thinking, Spencer shoots all of them, shooting Nelson along with them. He got into the elevator and tried to comfort him, but seeing the elevator coming to a stop, he ran off, nearly missing Hathaway and other soldiers. After escaping, Spencer calls Maya. She asks what happened and where he is, telling him the ESA said he was arrested for treason and accused of being a spy. Spencer insists they've made a mistake and that they want him dead. He tells Maya about a test he took 3 years ago at the hospital, which could prove his innocence if he takes it again. Maya warns him it's not safe for him to come home and asks where he is so she can come to him. Before they can make plans, the call is abruptly disconnected and Spencer keeps running. As he was running, Spencer started having a nosebleed and hallucinations of Maya and soldiers approaching to attack. He quickly gathered himself and went out. He was now out of the dome. Outside, he saw aircraft and ran to hide before he was spotted. Hathaway and the secretary have a tense conversation. The secretary questions the situation, and Hathaway offers to hand it over to Captain Burke. Hathaway admits they don't know if the replicant is still pursuing its target, the range of the bomb, or if there's a secondary trigger. With the Chancellor arriving in 4 hours, the secretary demands answers. Hathaway explains that the Centauri's advanced nanotechnology makes the bomb undetectable until it's triggered. When asked how to deactivate it, Hathaway says they must shoot it, but notes that the replicant believes it's human, fears death, and will eventually make a mistake. He adds that it can bleed, revealing its vulnerability. Spencer kept walking. He then saw a little girl covered in blood telling him that he shouldn't be there. Despite this, he broke a window to an apartment and got inside. He saw people standing and went to another room. The apartment is covered in sand and debris. He looked for pills in the cabinet and saw he was bleeding in the mirror. He then heard a sound from outside and saw soldiers arriving in the area. They started asking the people there if they had seen Spencer showing his picture. Then they set up a scanner that could show through the building as the half-soldiers got inside. With the navigation from the soldiers downstairs, they started chasing Spencer. Suddenly, someone came from behind and put a bag over his head. Soldiers reached the area, but they only found a little girl. Heathway, angered by this, instructed them to move to the next building. Spencer regains consciousness and finds a man standing in front of him. The man begins reading Spencer's details. He notes that while Spencer's jacket and Glock 18 suggest he's with the ESA, everything else about him seems more like a civilian in trouble. The man drags Spencer to a different location, urging him to move quickly as they pass through a security checkpoint. The man reveals his intention to turn Spencer into the ESA for a cash reward. Spencer tries to negotiate, offering to triple whatever the man could get by turning him in. The man dismisses Spencer's offers, expressing bitterness over how government aid always comes too late. The man, pointing his weapon at Spencer, threatens to kill him. Spencer counters that he's worth more alive, offering drugs and other valuable items. Spencer instructs the man to enter a SIM code, revealing his wife Maya's profile. Spencer tells the man that Maya would do anything to get her husband back alive. He proposes that the man help him get into the city and the hospital. Hathaway visits Maya to express his condolences, stating they haven't found Spencer's body but are searching for the imposter. Maya insists she'd know if it wasn't her husband and questions when the switch happened. Hathaway admits they don't know but warns the replicant might contact her. Hathaway then asks if the replicant has contacted her or if she knows where it might go. Maya denies both. Hathaway instructs her to inform them if anything changes and offers to escort her home to grieve, but she declines. Hathaway mentions the deaths of Nelson Giddes and 2 of his men. We then see a woman treating Spencer's wounds. After getting treated, Spencer walked out of the room and saw a lot of injured people. The man who brought him in, Cale, took him out. Cale went to a group of men and came back after talking with them. He then pointed his gun at Spencer and asked what he hid from him. Spencer revealed that he is a fugitive, but he also told him that he is not what they say he is. As they were talking, the men Spencer was talking to came back and attacked Cale. They walked to him to finish what they started, but Cale got up and retaliated. Spencer and Cale fought all men and managed to defeat them. After the fight, Spencer asked Cale how he learned to fight like that, and for his name. Cale introduced himself and in return asked Spencer about the rumors surrounding him. Spencer explained that the ESA thinks he's a Centauri robot with a bomb in his heart, programmed to kill the Chancellor. With that, they decided to keep moving and ran off to escape. As they were walking, Spencer began to break down, hearing voices and running away. He had a vision of himself and Maya before collapsing. Cale ran to him, waking him up and taking him to another location. Frustrated, Cale asked what was wrong. Spencer explained that the ESA had given him psychotropic drugs, messing with his mind and making it hard to trust his thoughts. He admitted feeling guilty, thinking he might have killed his best friend without realizing it. As they talked, Spencer spotted ESA forces approaching with Hathaway. Grabbing a gun, Spencer told Cale he would be back, and then followed Hathaway without revealing himself. Hathaway, meanwhile, received information that Spencer was at Veterans Plaza, tracked by a device. Outside, Spencer meets Cale, who angrily grabs the gun from him. He reminds Spencer that he risked everything to get him there and demands his promised reward. Spencer assures him he'll get it. Meanwhile, Hathaway receives Spencer's location and starts closing in. Cale, now more curious, presses Spencer to reveal what he's after. Spencer simply says he's looking for proof. They went to an unfinished building that was supposed to be a hospital. Heathway received the new location of Spencer, which was right where he was standing, but he wasn't around. Cale and Spencer reached the medical unit and disguised themselves as a doctor and patient to sneak in. As Spencer is being wheeled by Cale, he sees Maya, but he passes without saying anything. Heathway remembered a man stumbling on him and got into his pocket only to find Spencer's tracking device. Cale and Spencer accessed a medical storage unit using someone else's handprint. Cale started filling a bag with medicines, but Spencer urged him to be quick, warning him to leave within 5 minutes. With time running out, Spencer reminded Cale that he only had a couple of minutes left and could still leave through the front door if he hurried. Before leaving, Cale handed Spencer a gun and told him to be careful. Spencer sneaks into Maya's office and discovers a recording of himself being interrogated by Hathaway. Meanwhile, Hathaway is furious, scolding his men for their disorganized efforts. He questions why troops were pulled and receives reports from Captain Burke, who confirms that a third of the detail was removed from the project site, while the full complement remains at the Chancellery. Spencer goes to Dr. Carone and urgently asks where his wife is. Dr. Carone informs him that Maya left with the ESA about half an hour ago. Spencer then shows Dr. Carone a data spool, explaining that it's for a molecular core PET scan, and asks him to run a comparative test to help prove his innocence. Spencer gets into a machine that will scan his body. When Spencer wasn't looking, Dr. Carone touched a button. A woman got in, and Dr. Carone signaled her to get some help. As she was going out, she ran to Cale and, thinking he was one of them, told him to get security. Cale came to the room and warned Spencer, but securities got in. Spencer and Cale fought them, but Cale got stabbed. Spencer put a bandage on Cale's wound and told him to leave. Spencer also got out, but Heathway and his men found him. He managed to escape with them following him. Hathaway arrives at the location where Spencer is being scanned. Seeing the body scan, he then asks Burroughs a status report, and Burroughs informs him that they're still searching through the facility. Spencer called Maya, but she didn't want to talk to him. He then pleads with her to meet him one time, and she agrees. Spencer and Maya finally meet, and Spencer tries to explain the situation. He tells her that while the authorities were right in theory that a ship crashed and a cyborg destroyed his body, they made a crucial mistake. He insists the Centauri never got to him and that he can find the ship to prove it. Maya, shaken, admits she doesn't know what to believe after everything the ESA told her, including accusations that Spencer killed Nelson. They searched their house and questioned her for hours. However, they are interrupted as the ESA approaches, forcing them to flee together into the woods. Spencer is determined to find the ship and the proof he needs. As they try to open the crashed ship, Hathaway catches up to them. He admits he was wrong about Spencer and tries to convince him to come over to their side, warning him that he doesn't want to see what's inside the ship. Despite Hathaway's pleas, Spencer is resolute. He opens the ship and is horrified to find Maya's body inside, revealing the awful truth. The real Maya was killed, and the one with him was the replicant all along. Maya attempts to flee, but Hathaway shoots her from behind, ending her life. Spencer sat hugging the body. At this time, another ship opened, revealing the body of Spencer. At that time, Spencer, the one that is alive, exploded. Cale watches the news report announcing that 14,000 kilometers above Earth, a tragic event has occurred. The report concludes with a somber reflection, stating that lives are lost to progress, a necessary sacrifice.